Hello everyone, we are another program of Kabbalah for beginners. Today we have a unique program about a very special newspaper written by Baal HaSulam in 1940. It's called The Nation. The purpose of this newspaper, Baal HaSulam wanted to approach the nation with a very strong call to explain what is the importance of the connection between all the parts and how the connection between all of us, where that could lead us. So this is actually a very special occasion, this release of this newspaper back then. It was the first one. And now Rav Leitman maybe will explain to us how we have to reach that same high place where our nation needs to be, as Baal HaSulam wrote. So, well, what can I say? The newspaper, it's very both delicate and threatening. It's unique. I don't know how else to explain it. Its name is very unique. What is the nation? If we get to its very depths, we can maybe understand why he called it this name. Not the Israeli nation, not the Jewish nation, but rather the nation. As if there's nothing else besides this. And here we have to maybe understand a bit of history. All of humanity actually comes from ancient Babel, or Babylon. Kabbalists explain to us that there was no possibility to correct this whole big human crisis of this big ego that existed in us predominantly as part of the creation by the Creator. The ego has to be a part of us. Ego is unnecessary hate of the others. And we have to reach that, to build with it love of the others. For the first time, this hate was felt back then in ancient Babel. And already there we had a division of that population into a group, actually, which we can call the nation of Israel. And all the rest of the Babylonians who spread out in the different continents, and the 70 nations of the world, as they are called, were formed. So that same unique group that divided themselves, they had disconnected themselves from the rest of the Babylonians, in that they accepted the method of correction upon themselves, and they were ready to go forth in correcting themselves and reaching this unnecessary hate to love of brothers. And they existed with this. They succeeded, sometimes more, sometimes less, throughout history, until, of course, they completely fell out of this into unnecessary hate. And they became actually much worse than the rest of the nations of the world. But still, you have in this nation the reshimot, the reminiscences, the same impressions from that same state of unity and love that was once existing between them. And so they have this ability, this opportunity to return to that same high exalted state they were once in. And they specifically are called the nation, those in which we have in them what is called the point in the heart, that spark which aims for for connection. So Baal HaSulam actually turns to all those people. He calls them the nation because it is only those who have a tendency, a need to connect based on love thy neighbor as thyself, who have the sparks of the point in the heart. They are called the nation. All the rest, there's no one to call here a nation. There's nothing that really connects them, other than if they connect in the natural egoistic manner that their nature obligates them and such, but no mention of some high cause. And so Baal HaSulam called the newspaper in this very unique name. You can understand it again here as something that he wanted to separate from everyone, this group. And he's really referring to something spiritual, of course. And he explains here that, well, this is what we have to do. We have to realize this goal, our destiny, to reach love of brothers. That in this we actually become the nation. So let's read one of the parts from the newspaper where Baal Sulam writes this. Observing life's reflections, we see that the process of a nation is very similar to the process of a single individual. The function of each nation is like the function of the organs in a single body, as the body must have harmony among its parts. The eyes see, and the brain is assisted by them to think and to consult. Then the hands work or fight, and the legs walk. Thus, each stands on its guard and waits for its function. Similarly, the organs that comprise the body of the nations, the counselors, the employers, the workers, the deliverers, etc., should function in complete harmony among them. This is necessary for the normal life of the nation and for a secured existence. Meaning, he here actually places before us the structure of a nation being something natural, as in nature, yes, that we must be connected among ourselves, just like we see an example in our body, or the collective nature and reality that we see, connected in all its parts in the one process, one goal, in a variety of connections on different levels and manners. And this is what we too have to find between us, this type of connection. And it's possible only by love, because we have no opportunity through some wisdom of ours or some investigation, intellectual investigation, to come to some understanding. That's why it is said that one learns out of one soul, the opening of one soul to another, in finding what is good for the other. Nobody teaches animals, let's say, how to care for their offspring. You see, even in humans, nobody teaches humans how to be parents. They feel this natural love for their baby, and they care for it correctly. And it's the same thing really here. Out of this great love for the others, we will find the correct connections and be able to build this correct web, this correct network between us, in which we can really reach this natural match and harmony with nature, where all the causes and factors will actually be arranged for our good and helpful to one another. Well, we know there is a natural function of our body that, like homeostasis, keeps itself always balanced. Yes, Rav says, but all the cells among themselves are very opposed to one another. There are systems that absorb, systems that release, systems that are always opposite and balancing each other, releasing and intaking. But again, one harmony. The goal, the upper goal we have here, is above all, and it connects them all together and determines how each and every individual here must function. So, okay, we see this homeostasis operating in the body, keeping it always balanced. Why is there no such mechanism in us as a general population and to live harmoniously? In the general humanity, it exists, yes, but you have to invite it. Human society, in its structure, is broken, intentionally, actually. It's been specifically like so, because it was once in this state of being in one man and one heart, it was created in that state, and it intentionally was brought through a crisis, a breakdown, and it is revealed as repulsion and hate towards one another, even taking advantage of one another. And yes, we're willing to connect to each other in that manner, yes, to take advantage of each other. But we eventually they'll come to this recognition of evil, which brings us to a necessity for a connection. Now you speak about the upper force, you said, that maintains all of the nature underneath it in an integral, connected manner. Very nicely, very harmoniously, we see that it operates in all of nature except for humans. We have to complete ourselves in this general picture of nature. And it's not a question of who we are. Actually, all of human society specifically that part called the nation of Israel, who were once in that state of harmony and fell from it, they now must actually begin anew to be the first to ascend to this correction and draw forth the rest of the world with them. And in this, we reach from the human level of society to a level of being in harmony and wholeness with nature. In all the parts of nature, still vegetative and animate, we see problems today, and it's actually reflected from us. We bring it on to them, and so in our correction, they're corrected. Okay, but why would a person want to be part of something whole, some big thing? Today a person feels he's quite okay, he's working out more or less with his life. Why do I want to be some cell in some body or some leg? I don't know, why would I want to be part of something greater? Well, if we reveal that bigger picture and we see the wholeness of it, we see that it's something humongous and wonderful that raises me there to a level above all the sensation and awareness that I'm familiar with on this level of reality. It's above life and death, and it's called in the Torah and the Kabbalah freedom from the angel of death, meaning it brings me to a level of reality that I'm completely unaware of, in a level of consciousness and awareness that is unlimited, unrestricted in the sensation of infiniteness. Why would I not desire this? I look at my current life, even though it may be, I don't know, somehow more or less, I may be content somehow, but it's still very limited. And a person, I think all of us will feel more that we cannot stay in this. The general program of nature is actually pressuring me bit by bit, that I have to come to feel my state more and more from the inside, even unconsciously, pushing me forward to develop, like pricking me in the back. And the Kabbalah actually presents us here this very wonderful picture before us, in front of us. We see actually that we can't flee from these problems behind us, this pricking in the back, because we really have to reach this state of wholeness. Well, I think, let's touch back down on earth. I think we see in our country, there is concentrations of like different sections of the world. It's like you can take populations from all around the world and sort of like brought parts of them here in Israel, and we see all these parts and concentrations, and none of the parts seem to work out with one another. And you can even, if we speak about our nation, actually it's not just about the country of Israel, they're all around the world. And none of us as parts are actually happy with each other. We have this huge salad. Wait, you feel this very unique preparation for correction? I don't know about correction. Preparation maybe, but I don't see any correction in front of me here. And this is my question. Out of this whole mess, this salad, how can you depict a form of a picture? It's wonderful. Look, I mean, if we now, even within the borders of this small country, if we would take the initiative to form a whole beautiful nation connected in threads of love, mutual bond, arvut, we will actually illuminate this. We would bring it on to the whole world in this, including especially Israel found outside of Israel, what's called in physical exile. We would be able, through these tubes, through these threads, spread out and bring that love, that understanding to everyone. And you would suddenly see this opening up and developing in the whole world and sprouting in one shot. This preparation is very similar to the incorporation of Bina and Malchut and Bina. We learn these incorporations being necessary for correction, yes? It's a result of our having left to exile, which was necessary. We fell from that high exalted state of exile, as it is said, that the nation of Israel did not fall to exile, rather to join the nations of the world. We fell from that state, we mixed and connected with all the nations of the world, and now we have returned here in the nation of Israel, the country of Israel physically, in connection with all the other parts of the world, in which we must, together with them, rise to correction. Well, I can see that metaphor of the tubes and the threads of love. Yes, to the whole world. Okay. If you can draw it, actually, it would be better. But I want to add a question on top. Because there's an assumption here that in the source where all these threads come out from, you connected these threads together inside. How do you do that? How do you connect us in these threads of love? Well, look. This is, let's say, the land of Israel. And here, I have to connect all these threads inside. That's why Bala Sulam says that we must first circulate the wisdom of Kabbalah in the land of Israel. And then, this wholeness formed here, because we are connected with all the nations of the world as a result of the exile that we went through. And yes, in each part of these nations, yes, you have a part of Israel not present there. This, let's say, Jewish part, you could call it, meaning those part of them that are drawn to unity. It's actually a part of that same nation of Israel from back then, drawn to the Creator, Yeshalkel. And they're connected with us. They're not distant. Physically so, yes, but they're connected with us. The moment we begin correction, they feel themselves going through these things as well. And they too, in the same manner, begin to influence the rest of the nations in this manner. It is like a body. I mean, this, you understand, is like the bodily system that you're familiar with in the body. You have, let's say, the brain, to more important central systems of the body, and spread out more and more and more in branches. What flows in these tubes? It's not water, right? The light that reforms, the light of correction. It's the upper force, the quality of bestowal, the force of the Creator, the sensation of Him. I mean, this is all the same thing. All these words are meaningless because it's the one thing. It's the source of spiritual livelihood and vigor. And there's a sensation that it comes to you from above, that it draws you to rise above your beastly life. You get in it the sensation of necessity to rise above this life, to uplift, to be above it. So there's a taste flowing in this tube? Yes, yes. What taste? A taste of upper spiritual life, of bestowal. Yes. So, what are we trying here, actually? We want to return this heart to function, this internal part, back to life? Well, what does Bala Sulam say? The purpose of the nation is to bring itself to a state which it can really be called the nation. He writes here, we are still like a sack of walnuts, that we are connected really, not really actually, but because of external pressure like anti-Semitism. And so we still have this like outer shell around us. But once we crack it, the love is poured outwards. But what's the correct form here? The correct form here is that we don't need this sack, but rather that we adhere, cling to each other in connections of love. And then we are in equivalence, in matchment with all of nature in this harmony. And we bring it to the level of the higher, upper spiritual degree, and then radiate that to the rest of humanity and all of nature. We will suddenly find ourselves in all levels, suddenly living in this good world. Do we have an example of this process? Take any system which is, let's say, imbalanced, and you return it to balance, you see that everything suddenly works out. Look at the viruses or bacteria that attack our body. We get sick. It's a sign of imbalance. Something comes out of balance, and it gets fixed, and everything works out again. And you see it in the ecology. You see, let's say, human mistakes as if they're mistakes. Everything you can point to actually is a result of balance or imbalance. Look what happens today you can see this imbalance on all levels of still, vegetative, the animate, the animals, yes, and all the humans and the connections between them. And soon, I don't know, maybe we won't feel the ground underneath us. Yes. We actually have many questions at the internet from all around the world. Gal Felixbrot from Eilat, Israel, is asking us, how does a person even reach a state that he feels himself operating as a part of a whole body and not being a separate cell? Well, first of all, if you look at the development of human society till today, you can see it actually brings us to this state. I'm not a person who really leaves my house so quickly, but you see today how easy it is to travel from one place to another. I've been in most places, I could say, at least half the world. I'm connected also in communication, the internet, phone calls, messages from everywhere in the world. Today, the volcano happening there, the tsunami happening there, the oil problem happening there, and the Wall Street, it's all influencing me. I feel myself connected and dependent upon everything. Look, you have all this grain burning up in Russia now. Soon, we're going to have problems of bread. That influences me. That oil crisis in the U.S., we don't even know yet, but it's possible that the ocean might get very adversely affected. Maybe the weather, the climate, and the volcano. Suddenly I can't fly to Europe and all sorts of goods and products. And we're not even getting into money here. Things which are more practically showing connection between people. But I'm talking about my daily basic functioning. I don't know what's going to happen even. I don't know if you look at young people today, what's going to happen with your pension plans in like 50 years, 30 years. Something to at least finish off your life in some good manner. The world has become so unstable and unknown that it actually strikes fear in people, in everyone. We today are in this world, and you can see how it's developing more and more and more from day to day, because we once thought we had leaders of society with open eyes and big minds who would plan everything for us. And you actually see today that they're not really understanding anything. They're incapable of doing much. They come and plan these G20 meetings and I don't know what, and they leave just as they came in the very beginning. They reach no decision because they themselves don't understand what's happening. The world is obligating us here to think about the future. This mutual dependency is very troublesome. You see how it worries everyone. Where did you ever see in history that a few nations would come and decide that they are, let's say, banning some other nation from equipping itself with weapons? You see, it's accepted in the world today. Why? Because we feel the interdependency between us being very prominent, very strong. And everything is pushing us today to understand the world is round, and the smallest imbalance at any part affects everyone. It brings us all to the question to what is the reason for this imbalance? And the answer to that is simple: our ego, on all levels. You see it in the family and general society, and the banks and everything manipulated there, and the oil, and different ecology and climate. People are speaking about so many different things suddenly being revealed. But really, the matter is here that people don't have a solution to the problems. There's no medicine here. And this is what the wisdom of Kabbalah offers people here. And Baal Sulam here places a lot of hope here in this, that we, in the land of Israel, and we have today very superb conditions. Look today, you have horrendous things around the world, and here you see Israel is sort of like in this oasis. Like now things are maybe not so bad. Maybe it's a little less hot than usual. Well, relatively, yes. they say that it's relatively cooler than what it used to be. But you understand, we don't see the huge blows here as we've seen around the world. Look at the economic crisis. We are being given, for now, conditions which are great for us to concentrate on our connection and balance ourselves in the world. And if we don't do that, we will surely feel very strong forces which will obligate us, even dramatically. Well, in relation to what you just said and Eran's question, Arthur from Sochi is asking us why, because we spoke about the walnuts in a sack, as Bala Sulam's example, why are there walnuts in a sack under pressure and there are others who are not? Well, we as the nation are obligated to bring that method of correction. Yes, as that same group that initially received that method of correction, corrected itself and broke, only in order to spread itself among all the nations of the world. And now we must be gathered back again, that same part, as in a sack, to realize this correction once again. And through these same connections that we formed in the exile, actually, to radiate the love, that correction, back to all the other nations. Why else would we have to go out to exile? We reach correction. When we return to be one now, we bring all the souls of the nations of the world with us. We're not here on our own. Correcting ourselves now does not mean returning to the same state of the nation of Israel that existed before the destruction of the temple. Rather, it is where the desires of the nations of the world exists within. As our friends here just said, Oren said, you see here representatives today in Israel, these Jews from all around the world. But each one came with his foreign culture, foreign desires. This is like a preparation. And if today, along with all that, we reach connection and love, then we will surely, from attaining this inside, we will form a state which is like Bina connected with Malchut. But yes, we're talking about Bina. And Malchut is incorporated in it. And then we radiate the forces of Bina back outwards to Malchut. So this is what's called Malchut in Bina and Bina in Malchut. So we talked about the metaphor of the sack of walnuts. So we have another part we can read here. Bala Sulam writes this: the threads of love that connect the nation, which are so natural and primitive in all the nations, have become degenerated and detached from our hearts. They are gone. In that sense, we are like a pile of nuts united into a single body from the outside by the sack that envelops and unites them. Their measure of unity does not make them into a united body, and each movement applies to the sack produces in them tumult and separation. Thus they consistently arrive at new unions and partial aggregations. The fault is that they lack the inner unity, and their whole force of unity comes through an outside incident. To us, this is very painful to the heart. I want to ask a question, Rav. If we're looking, let's say, the existence of the nation of Israel, the country of Israel, our existence seems to be existing only for this. Our culture today is based upon the other nations' cultures. Everything today is based upon what we got from them. Today we live on the privilege only out of the hate of the nations of the world for us. Not otherwise we would spread out everywhere. We have no desire to be here. And the parts being pressured here are the parts which are necessary to be here. Otherwise they wouldn't. That's one thing to remember. Second thing, we of course don't see a real culture here. Rather, it's a copy of the culture of the whole world. And there is no foundation here that we can really work with, other than if we begin to actually rise. It's not looking at the other nations and seeing what else we can copy from them, but rather look at our source above, and if we desire to connect with it, we will receive the character of a nation internally. All that it needs to have incorporated inside. We don't understand what this is because we are not a nation that we can learn from the rest of the nations to be similar to them. We see it doesn't work out with us. We're different. It hasn't worked for 60 years. The elements for building our nature, the foundations, we can only take from our upper source, from Bina. And until we don't look there to take an example from there and realize it, we will not have a nation here. So I want to ask, it seems that over the course of our whole history, there's only one force that can connect us, as you explained, this external force. What other force exists that can bring us to unity? The connection between us? Without some external force, why else do you need a sack? But where do we take the forces to do this? Well, that's the light that reforms. It's not us. That's why we need the wisdom of Kabbalah. That's why it's revealed to us. This is why we truly need this whole connection between us in the meantime, yes? As a group that opens up the book of Zohar and learns it, yes, reads it, not really learns. It's not a book that you study. We read it to draw the light that reforms from the upper force. Understanding forces, everything from above to advance. We don't get anything from ourselves rather than from the light. That's why the nation of Israel and the land of Israel with the Torah of Israel, meaning the wisdom of Kabbalah, the light, this is what must all come together, connect. That's why he said Israel, the light, and the Creator are one. These are all one. And you can only reach there with the wisdom of Kabbalah. And the moment we begin to connect, we will see how everyone stops pressuring us. This sack around us will disappear. We don't need it then, because we're connected inside, in harmony, in balance, and in that to radiate that outwards to the rest of the world. Because we're all connected to each other from the exile, and out of this projection to everyone, they receive this understanding, the forces, and everything that we got from our correction is Bina passes it on to Malchut. Malchut cannot do anything on its own other than to receive from Bina, and that is realized here. It's the same part that is here that exists in Malchut. This is the part in Bina that is incorporated there. It is called the nation of Israel present in the nations of the world. Thus, we have this incorporation of Malchut in Bina by us. Yes, like different cultures and other nations that connected with us and are connected here with us in the land of Israel. That's how too we will influence them outwards to the rest of the nations, because we have the nation of Israel there. It's called Bina in Malchut. This is what we learn about in Tess and many other sources. Bina and Malchut, in their connection, we have Bina in Malchut and Malchut in Bina, and in that we reach correction. Yes, Owen. These messages, like the land of Israel, the nation of Israel, the land of Israel, with the Torah of Israel, I learned since I was a kid. It was put into my mind. What message can we approach the nation today, which they can simply understand and accept? Because we see the nation being very apathetic. They don't want to hear. They're tired of listening to this already. Well, that's hard for me to say. I don't feel so well what they're ready to listen, what they're ready to hear. I'm not so sensitive to that, because for me it's so clear and simple what it's possible for us here. And you take some young guy in the street, yes, his ears are shut, I understand him. It's hard for me to reach out to him with some, I don't know, a sentence, a saying, a call that will maybe touch his heart. I don't know what to say, really. We really have to maybe turn to our young friends, those especially who are joining us just now. What do they advise? They're most familiar with the younger generation. I can, of course, explain things more, detail things out more, but we have here, what's here actually is just my terms, my words. In this drawing, you're beginning something here from this source where the wisdom is called outwardly. What's the first thing that streams out here, that projects or radiates here? Like I'm saying here, in this nation of Israel, you have to organize a group. This is what we first need, a small group of it, a portion. I will write this here for it to be clear to us. A group. Or let's say Bnei Baruch. I think that'll be even simpler for us to understand what I mean. The group of Bnei Baruch. We need those who are capable and desire to connect, to personally give an example to everyone else. That's the first thing. And then the rest of the nation. To circulate outwards to the whole nation. On our part, to explain to them what is the meaning here. And of course, to be assisted with all our groups and our friends in all places to help us influence that same part that's remaining here in the nation of Israel. We have to explain to them from the inside, from us, and from the outside, from our friends outside the land of Israel, how we are here in a very unique goal, very unique reason. You said that inside it's quite arranged for you simply. But forget the young guy whose ears are shut. But I'm talking about a child. As Baal Sulam said, he still hasn't been corrupted by the opinions of the world. What you drew here, I think it looks maybe a bit scary for a child, yes? What, though, can we show a child symbolizing this corrected state? You know, I actually think it's easier for kids to explain to them, I mean, because what we're talking about is connection. We're talking about, let's play together, let's connect together, in love, mutuality, such that we won't have to fear each other, some nice, collective, pleasant game. And I actually think children accept it very nicely. Even adults, actually. But you see, adults have already reached a certain level of despair. Children accept everything as definitely possible. You see, adults actually are a bit tired. They're kind of in despair from any form of real success in life, real enjoyment. That's why we should turn to maybe young people in spirit. By them, we actually find a great force in them, a great desire to change their life for the good. From Tel Aviv, they're writing at the internet the question, what you're bringing the young person is an explanation of a solution for the ego. And that there is no solution in the ego itself. And how do you explain to them that we need to be a nation of Israel? Well, look, you have a group, and in the group you have books who talk to you about connection and how you then reach a way to open your eyes to all of reality and everything above life and death. And you have guides here. Yes? And this group, these guides, that's it. You really don't need anything else. By these, you reach together to light out reforms. Or makif. It's the upper force in nature. It's the same force which actually maintains and operates in all of nature. It's the force of balance, mutual influence, mutual incorporation. You can call it love. If you want to use terms which are not emotional, it's mutual incorporation. It's the same thing, actually. And that's it. you are then inviting this force to influence you, and that's actually something very realistic. Very realistic. In this, you'll give an example to children. Actually, take a look at children. Take an example of their development. You see how simply they're drawn to be adults or to be older, and they're simply drawn after it. If we inside us, between us, will determine the correct forms of advancement, as Kabbalists advise us to, especially Rabash and the societal articles, we will feel the internal light arranging ourselves in that without a doubt. We feel how we're changing. We have something to rely on. We have thousands of people connected in our network. You could ask most of them. They will tell you that they have an internal change from the study. They begin to feel more, to understand more. They begin to have a real hope that, wow, this world isn't lost. Forget 2013. Why wait for tragedies? We can change everything now. We can take everything in our hands. Yes, Meir. Maybe, it's a bit difficult, but I think the question standing out here is, it seems that this change will bring a change on all levels, country and the world. And there's no real answers here to, religious, non-religious. How do people come to being connected in mutual love and peace suddenly? I understand you, you're right. By this, that we begin to draw this force in nature, the force that ties us all together, then surely the borders between us will begin to change and be nullified, and we begin to change from the inside. We begin to receive a mutual form, which includes all the forms, and yet not being any specific one. And this is called like the Israeli prototype, really. Not what you're used to thinking about, the common Israeli, yes. We're talking about a form which we're not familiar with. It's an internal form, not an external one. I don't want to get into this too much because maybe it's a bit scary for some people. Like what? I won't belong to the culture I'm used to. You'll belong to your root. And then you won't remain this way or that way, in that culture, or this religion, this method, or I don't know what. You will receive correction. What's your form of correction? Your corrected form? I don't know. And that we really don't talk about. Really. You will be a spiritual person. And out of your internality, your spirituality, you will radiate that outwards. It will project out of you into your externality. That's why here we're surely building the nation at all levels, yes, in culture, in education, in all levels of society. We want to erase all gaps between us, all borders and classes, parts of the society. We want to become as one man in one heart. And along with this, as Bala Sulam says, really says here, and I want to add it, we don't want to erase here any uniqueness of any individual. That till the end of the correction, every individual can stay in their own religion and whatever upbringing they had. There's no loss here. The spiritual ascent doesn't need for you to take any part of your corporality away. You can stay with all your habits because it's unrelated to your need to be with everyone there spiritually. There's no need to eat what everyone else eats and act as everyone acts. No, we stay with these and yet uplift spiritually. Let's read another part from Baal Sulam writes about returning to that same love. The only hope is to establish a thoroughly new national education for ourselves, to discover and ignite once more the natural national love that has been dimmed within us, to revive once more the national muscles which have been inactive in us for 2 millennia, and every suitable means to this end. Then we will know that we have a natural, reliable foundation to be rebuilt and to continue our existence as a nation, qualified to carry itself as all the nations of the world. This is a precondition for any work and any act, because it is a shame on those who build buildings without a strong enough basis, foundation. Not only are they building really nothing, they are endangering themselves and others next to them. The building will fall with the slightest movement, and its parts will scatter in all directions. What are these national muscles that have atrophied? These are the muscles of connection between us that are no longer present, because we were once so connected together. Look, what's happening here? Take a few people, let's say, connected among themselves in different connections. Now, the extent of the connection between them can be on the level of 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Now, if the level of connection is 0, they really feel nothing. They feel 0. Let's say a level of connection of 1 at least means they're willing to nullify themselves to some extent. Each one of them rejects his ego outwards and is drawn to the others mutually. If they do that mutually, meaning to repulse the ego on one side, on one hand, and let's say each one, let's say, is capable here of repulsing maybe 20% of the ego, they can feel themselves on some extent of spiritual connection. Let's say we call it the world of Asiya. Let's say if they reach 40% repulsion of their ego, they can reach the world of Yetzirah, or level 2. It's just an example. What I'm trying to say here is that as much as we reject the ego, we can be in greater connection between us. I am either on 20% rejection and inclination to connection, or 40% rejection and inclination to rejection. In this, I am revealing the upper force of love and bestowal. It's the Creator dwelled here between us, in this network among us. We don't reveal Him in any one of us individual, but rather between us. It's like an electrical current between us. This is called the Creator, the upper force, the upper light. And we have all preparations for this. Yes. 1, 2, עשייה, בריאה, עשייה, יצירה, בריאה, אצילות. Oh, he wrote it in a different language. I think I'm confused with all the languages. I think I'm above my borders. Well, when I usually want to convince someone of something, to strengthen these connections and attain this love, what am I telling to them? In like a negative manner. If you don't do this, you'll have very bad. You think it's bad now, it'll be worse. But in our nation, what can we tell them which is positive? Look, everything. You tell them that you're going to be rewarded everything. First thing is a true nation, which you don't have now. Morals, which you don't have now in society. And most of all, anti-Semitism will be gone. You'll reach true success, security, a state that you're rising to, which is, if you imagine your state now being like some hole in the ground, then you're going to reach your goal, being a high mountain, a peak. You turn to be like Israel can mean li rosh, like being a head for the whole world. The whole world, it's no wonder they all look at us and pointing us being the worst part of the world. And because they're really pointing to the head and saying, you're a head, yes, but you're bad. You're really bad. And they're right. Because we have to become the good part in this world. They will always have a different attitude towards us because they, at least unconsciously, understand that we determine things to be either good or bad. That's the problem here. And they're 100% right in this. Baal Salam writes about this at the end of the introduction to the book of Zohar. Yes, Hillel? You know, I think it looks a bit utopian, really, in this that if you're acquiring all the good, where is the bad here then? Isn't there like a balance between good and bad? No, look, you're turning the bad into good. The difference between bad and good is in your use of it, either being for my good or for like the bad of others. But how do you know if it's good, if everything is good? Like if everything is corrected, how could you even feel the good without any bad? Oh, you're worried about that? Look, your ego, your will to receive, doesn't disappear. You just build the goodness, the good attitude on top of that. You always need to maintain it, to keep it inside and work on top of that. It doesn't disappear because it's the substance that you work with. The corrupted forms remain, and yet you acquire the corrected form on top of it. And so it turns out that the gap between what was beforehand and what we have now, you feel that gap as a great acquisition. You're right. I mean, if it's like it is said that you can't understand darkness without light and light without darkness. You're right. Yes. The greatest thing which we can promise man, as you said in the beginning of the program, is freedom from angel of death, eternality. And if I tell it to anybody in the street, they'll think I'm crazy, or I'm talking about something abstract. What eternal life? I mean, it is said, don't say that it is inscribed in the tablets, but rather that it's the inscribed. What's written on the tablets is inscribed. Rather, it's freedom. This is like a play with words from Hebrew, meaning if you take a look at your animal body, it's something that lives and dies. But in the connection between us, we can reach a spiritual level, a spiritual existence, which is above the body, above life and death in the physical sense. There we open up like a new channel of our existence, where we begin to feel ourselves just living and existing. And that's it. And my bodily, physical life really doesn't influence me then. Well, what's in the soul and eternality? We have so much written in mythology about eternality. Look, they can't describe it because they have no vessels of its sensation. They imagined things and they wrote about it. They talked about it. I don't know, what are you imagining? Garden of Eden with apple trees? I mean, come on. I don't know, somebody playing a harp, birds, angels. I think it sounds really boring, actually. With all due respect. We have to understand. These are corporeal depictions. And they're really... what's the point of them? We have to yearn to reach the true image, the true depiction. As it is said about a person who reaches spirituality, it's called, you will see the world, you will see your world in your eyes. That over the course of our corporeal life, you have to understand, everyone who hears me now, you have a 100% chance to reach eternal life. That's it. Listen, you have a chance here. Let's go. Well, you're against it? No, I'm not against. Two questions actually here we have from Sochi and Kiev in Russia. They're asking, how many mega congresses do we need for the nation of Israel to open up their ears and understand the need for connection? And Kiev specifically asks, why do all the externals in like Israel seem to want to connect more than the rest? No, look, they're talking about their friends being in Israel, which have a tendency for Israel of wanting to connect. Like here, let's say we're talking about, we have friends in Sochi, Kiev, Washington, New York, St. Paulo. It doesn't matter really where. We have groups, thank God, we say everywhere. And everyone is like us. It doesn't matter what you can say about them. They're Malchut and Bina or Bina and Malchut. They all have a point to them called Israel. And they're advancing spiritually. And let's say we have a group that's outside of Israel, and they are no people who are without a point in the heart. That's something else. And now, if we're talking about not circulating to those people outside, but in the physical Israel, which haven't had the point in the heart awakened, it's much more difficult because they were once at the spiritual level, and it's very hard to awaken these people to that spiritual exaltedness. Well, so we'll end here. Thank you everyone for being with us. We'll meet you in the next program.